Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the TMI Show, or the Ted Manila Information Show, as it actually stands for. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rall, pinging and ponging and making noises. I don't know what's happening over there. I think he's playing an arcade game.
It's true. I am.
Are you playing like?
Galaga.
Oh God, what is I hear pingings
or
ping.
Frogger or Pong?
Maybe. Pong, but that's a good game. They really don't make games like that anymore. All right, guys. So obviously we cover anything from news, politics, lifestyle, culture, fad diets, all that stuff. And we will give you TMI, including a lot of F-bombs. So please be forewarned. This show is not very kid-friendly. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow the show. We are getting painfully close to hitting that milestone on YouTube. So guys, please, if you're watching, hit that subscribe button. It does not hurt you in any way, but it helps us tremendously. So if you can please click that subscribe button to all you out in YouTube world. And shout out to our Rumblers, our regular coffee crew over there. Shout out to you guys for always supporting the show. Thank you for being here. On today's show, we're going to talk about Trump's expansion of Gitmo, because Obama should have shut it down.
Yes. Well, there was that thing. There was that matter of the campaign promise, the clear campaign promise. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Of course. But, you punt and punt and punt. And now it's come full circle that instead of shutting it down, we're just going to expand it into a full-on migrant resort. Should we call it a resort, Ted? It's a resort of sorts.
Well, it's funny. You know how there's like those resorts that it's always the something at the something. And I've always thought they should change that really butch sign at the front of Camp Delta at Guantánamo. And it should be like cursives. And it should say the camp at Guantánamo, or Guantánamo on the bay.
Ooh, yes.
Stay for the torture. I mean, come for the torture. Stay for the curly fries. Something.
Ooh, that's true. No, because they do forced intubation. Forced feeding through tubes.
Yeah, and not always the way that you and I, here. It's usually they do it from the other end, like the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. No, is it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Rectal.
I just always assumed it was esophageal.
They did that, but then they moved on to rectal feeding, which apparently is not even like a real thing, but like that was like when you're a sadistic, homoerotic, psychotic, murderous torturer for the CIA,
you come up with cool stuff.
You're bored. You're like,
or you come up with weird shit like a college sorority girl who, the girls, I don't remember which one, but they got
like the
drunk.
Hazing rituals.
I don't know if it was hazing, but these girls got drunk by soaking tampons in vodka and shoving it up. Yeah.
Oh God. But why?
Because you can get drunk.
Why not just be like, barkeep, I'll have a margarita?
I don't know.
Understand.
Because you're a dumb, bored college kid and you find useful. Well, see, now that the boys' bathrooms have access to tampons, Ted, well, I don't know how much longer. Well, but now the boys are going to hear this and they're going to go,
that's a nice gift on a first date, in college. You're like, you're sort of like, hey, so, I don't know if it's that time of the month, but, soon, I imagine. Although I did know this girl in college. We were just friends, but she said she only had her period every 6 months. So, and that's not impossible. That can happen. Yeah. So she was kind of like, she was pretty convinced she couldn't get pregnant. I don't know if that turned out to be true when she ever tried or whatever. But I remember just thinking that was very strange.
That could happen. There is a condition called the abbreviation is PCOS, PCOS, and it's something. Yeah, I don't remember what it stands for, but I know some people with that condition, and it does make your period skip. But I don't think that's what these sorority girls were doing, Ted.
No, they were. Well, it's kind of a twofer. So, they're getting drunk and they're prepared.
So I feel like the CIA at the torture sites might have been taking cues from stupid sorority girls on stupid ways.
Oh, for sure. Or stupid sorority, fraternity boys. More
Well,
likely
frat boys
in this case. Yeah,
Yeah,
douchebags.
more likely frat boys. Yeah,
Yeah.
they come up with sadistic ways. I
Mhm.
could tell you. I mean, I knew quite a few of them, Ted, and one of them, one of the fraternities that I knew, one of their hazing rituals was you got to strip down,
Mm.
and you're on top of the frat house,
Oh God.
and
Not sounding good.
you boys had to strip down and have a rope or string or whatever tied to your wang.
No.
And you gotta, and the other end of the rope is tied to a cinder block.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No
watched it.
No membership to anything is worth this.
I watched it, and I went.
And then what, they would threaten to drop it off or whatever?
No, you had to, if you really want to be a member of that fraternity.
What do you mean, throw it off? No, it'd rip it off. You would die.
No, it didn't.
Wait,
maybe
what?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw
it like a plastic
two
cinder
boys.
block or?
No, it was a cinder block. So it was just hanging.
Wait,
so I guess you don't.
Possible. You would like.
Maybe they didn't throw it off
violently.
They didn't throw it off violently, but they, had to let it go, and it jerked on it.
You could die. I mean, there's a lot of.
And that's what stupid frat boys do. Is my point. And this was the 90s,
Wow.
Ted. We were extra stupid.
Hey,
Producer Robbie had to chime in. I guess.
Robbie, you ever do that? You ever?
No. I wonder if this is one of the times where Manila was kind of hitting the bong or something, as she talked about. Maybe some kind of a hallucinogen or something.
I was mortified.
I don't think it's possible.
You would die.
You would die.
No,
but
I saw two boys do it, and I thought, I can't believe boys want to be a member of this stupid fraternity enough that you would do that. I mean, I don't know what it would feel like, but I feel like it would hurt.
I can tell you what it would feel like. It would feel like you're on a.
Did you just censor yourself?
No, I changed my better microphone.
Okay, I'm telling you, but I'm telling you, this is how the CIA figures out their Gitmo torture programs. They just go survey American fraternities and sororities. And then they're like, oh.
Well, I'm sure that they don't have a small number of torturers who have attended fraternities. I'm sure that's true.
Probably true.
Yeah. All right. We should probably get to the news. Yeah.
With that, we'll get over to
I call bullshit on the idea that you could even survive. Not even.
I don't think they threw it violently. I just saw.
I don't care if they throw it at all. I don't care if they lower it gently. You're gonna die.
It's dangling, and I don't know. I turned away, and I couldn't. I couldn't. It was just
involved here.
It was. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there to tie it on. I just was.
This is why there was a thing called the Barron's Guide, which I think probably doesn't even exist anymore, at least not in print. But that was the guide to colleges when you and I were applying to go to, or at least when I was applying to go to college. And and I remember it said that the school that I ended up going to had the lowest school spirit of any known school in the United States, and only had 60 members of Greek organizations. And I remember just thinking, that's the school for me. That's good. Oh. I'm against school spirit of any kind. So, there are no pep rallies, no pep. Nobody cared. It was actually a school where the football players would be, basically hazed by the engineering students and made fun of.
That's a good school. That's a school an Asian tiger
could
mom
get behind.
Would totally be behind. All right, with that,
let's get to the news. We have a lot to do.
Let's get into the news.
All right. For that, because yesterday when you were out, Manila, I was not able to do the JAWS. So it's good.
Yeah, that's right. I hold the keys to the JAWS.
Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you for them because I don't think I should have them. I don't think I can be entrusted.
This is a special place for me.
All right, speaking of people who maybe shouldn't be trusted with technology, and I am talking here about the U.S. military, everyone aboard an American Airlines jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members for a total of 64 that collided with an Army helicopter is feared dead in what was probably the worst U.S. aviation disaster in almost a quarter century. At least 28 bodies have been pulled out of the Potomac River after the mid-air collision last night when the military helicopter apparently flew into the path of the jet as it was trying to land at Reagan National in Washington. Crews are still searching for other casualties, but there's no belief that there's any survivors. We're now at the point where we're switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation, said John Donnelly, fire chief in Washington, D.C. We don't believe there are any survivors. The body of the plane was found upside down in 3 sections in waist-deep water. The wreckage of the helicopter was also found. Donnelly said first responders early this morning have been searching an area of the Potomac River as far south as the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. That's about 3 miles south of Reagan Airport. There was no immediate word on the cause of the collision. Did you hear anything when it happened?
No, we were up at 9 o'clock when thereabouts. My sleep has been interrupted. I was busy watching reruns of Botched, that plastic surgery, and all of a sudden, like, phones and iPads started lighting up. We didn't hear anything. We were definitely up. We were definitely watching TV. The whole house is down with, norovirus. And we were like, what? And before long, we could hear search and rescue because we're, like I said, we're a couple miles from.
You hear all the helicopters coming over.
Yeah. Search and rescue. And suddenly we're like, oh my God. But, it's too dark.
It's bad. This reminded me, of course, for people of a certain age, it has to remind you of that plane crash that in the Potomac River in 1982, when a plane, I believe, attempting also to land, it could have been taking off, but I think it was attempting to land at what was then National Airport. Basically,
still call it National, though.
Well, it's Reagan National, but it was renamed after Reagan later on, much to my discontent. And anyway, the plane went into the Potomac. There were a number of survivors that time, and there was a guy who was, like, I think, walking his dog, who jumped heroically into the Potomac, and it was freezing cold, just like now. It was an unseasonably cold winter that year, and he jumped into the Potomac and saved a bunch of people. He was a national hero. He almost died himself. He survived. So, but it was like one of those, like, thank God for him kind of things. He was the only person at the scene for a while. I don't think first responders had the ability to get there as quickly as they did today, although it didn't really make any difference here. This, according to, there's no immediate word on the cause, but officials say that the flight conditions were completely clear. The jet originated in Wichita, Kansas. There were a bunch of U.S. and Russian figure skaters on board, as well as other people. They were trying to make a routine landing when the helicopter just flew into its path. This was a training helicopter. It was a Black Hawk. On final approach to Reagan, it collided with a military aircraft on an otherwise normal approach. That, according to the CEO of American Airlines, Robert Isom. At this time, we don't know why the military aircraft came into the path of the aircraft. 3 soldiers on board the helicopter were on board the helicopter during the training flight. Obviously, they're presumed lost as well. Images from the river show boats around the partly submerged wing and the mangled wreckage of the plane's fuselage. When you see the imagery of the wreckage, it's really hard to imagine that anyone could have survived, even theoretically. So it's awful thing, obviously.
And besides that, Ted, here's where things get even more complicated. So as of right now, my house, I'm not in like the one flight. It's not like a one flight path thing from DCA, out of DCA, but certainly one of the paths of Reagan Airport, my house is under. So we, at this time of day, we see planes taking off all the time. We're on the takeoff path. And nothing this morning.
Doesn't it depend on the direction of the wind? I mean, like at LaGuardia, which is the equivalent, right? So this, for people who aren't familiar with Washington, D.C., this airport is not like an airport that's far outside of town. This is
smack center.
It's like directly across the Potomac River from Washington City proper.
The National Mall, basically.
And it's attached to the metro system. It's on the grid. You can, it's very convenient. It's very close. LaGuardia is probably
densely populated.
New York,
all around.
LaGuardia would be the best, analogy. It's not like SFO, which is outside of San Francisco, or or Oakland across the river.
DCA is in a densely populated area, and like I said, I live in this vicinity within a couple of miles, and it is a friggin' miracle, and I'll say it selfishly as a person that lives here under the flight path. It's a miracle that it happened over the river and not over homes, right?
Sure.
Because this is a densely, I can't stress enough. It's a densely populated area.
Air traffic controllers say it's the most difficult, area sector in the United States to manage because there are so many. It's not really that there's so many. That there's that many more civilian flights than there are anywhere else. New York has more, but it's the fact that there's so much else going on as well. There's so many military facilities.
You got
the Pentagon is there.
1, 2, and 3 flying. They're always testing. I always see them flying over. So there's a lot of air traffic, and this is like the most heavily monitored airspace, I would say, arguably in the whole country.
Manila, there are a lot of. I think honestly, there's a systemic issue that probably no one's going to bring up here. They're going to blame it on the military, probably on the military, the deceased military pilot of the helicopter and that crew, and they're going to be, oh well, they didn't see it. They didn't
see the giant jet.
They didn't respond to the ATC warning and blah 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 blah, and that's probably true. Okay, but there's a systemic issue. There's a lot of problems where there are collisions and encounters between civilian and military equipment. Some of them are clear, like for example, the U.S. Navy plane that shot down that Iranian jet over the Persian Gulf accidentally. Also the Soviet Union when they shot down KAL Flight 007 in the 1980s. But there's also sort of less verified, but probably true, like Pierre Salinger reported about TWA Flight 800 leaving JFK. That was, they thought it was a wing fire, but it probably was shot down by a U.S. Navy missile. They were conducting live fire exercises right underneath there. I mean, the truth is probably military aviation and civilian aviation should be more separated than they are now. In a lot of places,
very intermixed in
because
this
they have two different systems of air traffic control, and that's a problem.
Yeah, especially in this particular airspace, because yours truly lives here, Ted, and it's
I don't want to see you vanish on the air like, oh, is StreamYard letting us down, or has Manila been hit by a plane?
I'm just talking right now on air
for the TMI show.
I could just be talking on air right now, and literally a helicopter or something like Marine One could fall down on me at any friggin' moment.
We don't want that.
True.
No, that would be bad.
Second major thing that I'm thinking about, Ted, is that because there were two Russian nationals on board, these two
very famous
from the mid 90s, these Russian figure skaters, this duo. I don't know if they're a couple. Oh, they are a couple.
They were a married couple. They became very famous in 1996 when they won some kind of big championship.
Yeah, and so they obviously, as Russian nationals, this now becomes an international, or should become an international investigation, international operation. And Ted, I kind of feel like we have an idea how that's going to go when the Russian aviation authorities are like,
come on, just because there's two foreigners on the plane doesn't make it an international.
I think. Well, they still.
If two Americans were on a plane that crashed in Russia, it's not like we should be investigating it.
But we do, though. We still send people from our aviation authority over there to every country to be like, what happened? Like, just like with the Korean jet a few weeks ago, when it crashed into the wall, I think like the Thai, there was a bunch of Thai nationals.
That's a good point. It's a good point. So we'll see. We'll see how cooperative the U.S. is with their Russian counterparts to investigate this. Don't hold your breath.
I feel like maybe they're gonna say these Russian figure skaters it was like maybe their fault.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
they were like sleeper cells.
Yeah,
I'm partially joking, but they're literally. I think it was a New York Times article.
Anything is possible with these.
One of these big papers wrote something about how they had heard that Vladimir Putin was allegedly trying to send like explosive material onto like a UPS or plane or some shit, like cargo planes, or to create terror in the air.
Mm-hmm.
This is very recent. I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
All right.
This is,
all right. Well,
this is a real thing.
let's move on here. We're running behind schedule. Okay. Syria's de facto leader, Ahmad al-Sharaa, was declared president by a group of top military commanders.
Declared.
The current. It's like, hey, look, there's the president. Yep, I'm the president. The end. The current constitution. Well, they have a streamlined system. The current constitution.
Blood smeared all over the truck.
Could be. The current constitution has been suspended, and al-Sharaa was authorized to form a temporary legislative council to govern during a transitional period before elections. The duration of the so-called transitional period has not yet been declared. Al-Sharaa, who led the campaign to topple Assad, has previously suggested that writing a new constitution and holding elections could take between 3 and 4 years. The big question, the move provides some clarity about the power structures that will be in charge of Syria after trying to rebuild as they try to rebuild the economy and society after dictatorship and civil war. But it also heightens the focus on what al-Sharaa plans to do. Some people are wondering if he's really serious about establishing a pluralistic society in a country full of ethnic and sectarian divisions. Don't hold your breath. His background is, after all, that he's a jihadist. He's a former member of the Al-Qaeda subgroup, Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham, which, of course, still remains on the U.S. terrorism list. However, he has styled himself a statesman. He dropped his nom de guerre. I should have a nom de guerre. I think my nom will be like Teddy Al Clovis, swapping fatigues for suits and calling for good government. Now his power has been made official. So that's it. Al-Sharaa is the dude. He's the man. Drop shadow, Gothic lettering,
point out
capital
a couple
letters.
Of things here.
The man.
So Washington, D.C.
He looks like Raul Castro a little bit.
He does. The whole look. Well, so this dude, the new president.
That's a little sus. Why is his beard so much darker than his top hair? Do you think he dyes that thing?
But wouldn't he dye his hair, his top hair too?
More, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It does. Yeah, I did notice it looks kind of like a fake.
Like Lee's press-on. Like dictator
on beards, right? You got to put on a dictator beard.
Yeah, so, he looks like Sacha Baron Cohen in The Dictator. So look at the guy next to him with the beard. He's a much better looking dude. And by the way, just on looks alone, they should have given it to the other guy there to his right.
His buddy there. So here's this weird thing: is I noticed the U.S. politicians were much quicker to accept this allegedly former Al-Qaeda head chopper as the new president of Syria than they were, or even us, Ted, are to accept Pete Hegseth as the new SecDef of the United States. Like it seemed like a more casual approach with this guy. They're like, oh he was Al-Qaeda, but that was like 10 years ago. He's since like kind of reformed, but then we try to apply the same policy to Pete Hegseth. And I admit you and I are kind of, but we don't hate Pete Hegseth, but we just think he's kind of lightweight, right?
Well, and also apparently he's still drinking hard too. I'm all in favor of, alcoholics, reforming themselves.
Functioning alcoholics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, half of Washington, right? But I mean, But if you're apparently drinking so hard that you don't know what you're waking up to in the morning, which apparently seems to be his lifestyle. That's a problem. I mean, he's basically Hunter Biden in 2019. It's not good.
Well, look, if we're willing to rehabilitate this guy's image, why are we so reluctant to rehabilitate poor Pete Hegseth's image?
Pete Hegseth, my ass.
Because I mean, relative to this dude being an Al-Qaeda head chopper. And saying,
but he's not because he's the head of Syria. He's not the head of the Pentagon. That's right here in America. Okay, that's why.
Okay, look, pluralistic
it's our
society.
Business.
Please look around. At everyone that's around this dude, the new president. Please look at his whatever this is, his Secretary of Defense meeting or whatever this is. Please look around at all his supporters. There's one glaringly missing piece of the population.
Oh, I thought there was some burqa lady.
No.
No.
No, there's
no burqa babes, no hot burqa babes.
There are. I will pop it up on screen, maybe a little bit later at a random time. If there's this Arab reporter that I follow that was covering him, HTS, or is that Backstreet Boys or whatever they're called these days? That when what's her face from Germany? Wow.
Angela Merkel?
No. The current foreign minister.
Eva Braun?
No. God, why am I having a brain fart this morning?
Whatever. The German PM.
The German foreign minister.
Okay. Foreign minister.
I haven't slept very well for the last couple.
No, I know you have. That's not your fault.
So when Annalena Baerbock went to meet with him, like as a first head of state, or not head of state, but a head, somebody high ranking as a German official, went to go meet him. He refused to shake her hand. There's pictures and video of this. He completely refused to shake her hand.
Well, yeah, because he's a jihadi. So they're not. Yeah, they don't do that. They don't touch women who are not their wives.
Right. So pluralistic society. Pluralistic how? Like.
Well, it's going to have all the
men. Gray.
Manila, you are so dark and cynical. This is the new government will represent the wide range of male jihadis, from Salafists, from far right to further right wing, and all the ranges all the gradients in between.
So, like the American analogy would be like everyone from like a Tom Cotton all the way to a Lindsey Graham.
Exactly. That's a good analogy. Although, I'm so cynical, I would just say it's like how the American political system represents all the corporatist assholes who from, people like Joe Biden all the way over to, Donald Trump.
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham. They're all the same, basically, in some important respects. All right, we should keep going. Right?
Rock and roll.
Okay. After RFK's bruising performance in a heated 3.5-hour Senate confirmation hearing to try to become the top health official of the United States, I'm not sure that's true. I think that's
not right.
I think the Surgeon General is the top health official of the United States.
This is the top administrator of a department.
True. Anyway, he's off to the health committee this morning for round 2. The 71-year-old faces another grueling day of questioning from a more health-minded crowd, with Republican Chair Bill Cassidy, a doctor who caught Kennedy confusing basic facts about Medicare and Medicaid in yesterday's session, likely to press further about his grasp of America's healthcare system. Okay, I don't think that he did as badly as some mainstream reporting has said, but it was embarrassing that he didn't know that Medicare and Medicaid doesn't have deductibles. That's bad. It really, he should have known that. He should know.
Yeah.
He should know that. These are major programs. And Bernie Sanders, who confronted Kennedy over anti-vax merchandise sold by his former organization, Children's Health Defense, is expected to continue probing the controversial vaccine statements that have drawn fierce opposition from the medical community. Democrats landed repeated blows against RFK, with Senator Michael Bennet accusing Kennedy of peddling half-truths throughout his career. Hello, politician. And Senator Ron Wyden confronting him with seemingly contradictory statements about vaccines from podcasts in the past. His nomination to lead the Department of Health and Human Services has sparked unprecedented pushback, with more than 15,000 medical professionals and 75 Nobel laureates mobilizing against his confirmation. Despite insisting that he does support vaccines and would not restrict access if he's confirmed, his history of controversial statements, including this claim that no vaccine is safe and effective, are likely to face more scrutiny as senators weigh whether or not to hand one of America's most prominent vaccine skeptics control of its public health system. By the way, it's not really complete control. There's the CDC, there's the NIH. This is a cabinet department. I don't want to understate the job. It's a big job, but Manila, the thing that's strange to me is, I can see the there's valid criticisms about RFK. He is kind of an odd duck. But that said, there's something very strange about the fact that, like, Marco Rubio's confirmation sails through unanimously, 99-0, and RFK may not make it through. If RFK's thing, the worst thing you can say about him is that he's a vaccine skeptic, which I think has been overblown. I don't think it's really quite true that that's his stance.
Well, they call him a denier, a complete vaccine denier.
And that's not true.
That's not true.
He's vaccinated, and he has said so personally.
And all his children have vaccines. Right. Like no one can call me a vaccine denialist or denier or whatever the trope is. Like my kid has his vaccines. I didn't go based on the schedule. I went off, I was one of those annoying parents, but still, it's because I'm skeptical of putting 800 needles into my kid the first, 2 weeks of life. And that's,
I think honestly, if you're not thinking, look, I had the same concerns. Even when I got my cat, and it was like, the vet's like, okay, you have to get him fixed right away. I'm like, okay, am I a cat fixing denialist? No, I ultimately had it done, but like you, I looked into it, I researched it, I was not so sure. And by the way, the best thought, and this is what I did, is to wait as long as you can, because it's better for them. It allows
Same with my dog.
Their bones to set better. They live longer. They have better old age. So the longer you can wait, because all you're trying to do is avoid them spraying. So if you get it done before that happens, you're good. So anyway, the point is, it's just like, I think it's just strange that, like, basically the other thing is, it's like, let's just stipulate for the sake of argument that he was completely anti-vax, which is not true. But honestly, if the Make America Healthy thing goes through, literally tens of millions of lives could be saved in this country. And that's, maybe an even bigger issue than vaccines. It's literally the scale of it. I think people just aren't they're not focused on it the same way that they weren't focused on Al Gore.
Why are they focusing on the vaccine part?
President because we needed a president who cared about, the environment, and at a time when climate change was really heating up, pun intended. And like now, it's like we're focusing on the wrong shit here. I think.
I completely agree with that. And then we should point out there's his beautiful wife, Cheryl Hines, behind him, because Ted and I are fans of Cheryl Hines.
We are.
But look, I listened yesterday to the whole thing. Every now and again, I would look up to see, when it got real heated. But I listened to the whole thing yesterday. There's the merch that the Children's Health Defense Fund, or whatever it's called,
it is funny.
Was hawking.
This is cafe press shit, right?
Yes, it's like, come on, like, people hawk shit on Etsy, like, so fucking what? This is not like, this is RFK's bread and butter. Like, he's like the top vaccine denialist Etsy guy. Like, you go there to his Etsy shop, right? Like, this is not what it is. He literally spent the better part of the past 40 years as a top environmental and health lawyer in this country, fighting the good fight. And Democrats loved him the past 30 years. They loved him.
Also, don't forget, he's the guy who exposed how Bush stole the 2004 election with his reporting for Rolling Stone.
He was right. He was screaming about that. So again, the past 30 years, Democrats loved him until he decided to step up on Joe Biden. Then they didn't love him. And then, with the COVID stuff, they started maligning him because they knew that he was potentially going to run against Joe Biden, and they weren't going to have that. And so, look, this guy, like you said, but whatever you think of his rhetoric during COVID,
he's not as bad. He's not as bad as Marco fucking Rubio.
He's proven to be
Marco
right.
Rubio wants to start wars. Anyone who wants to start wars is a madman by definition.
Look, this guy, he schooled Elizabeth Warren, who didn't seem to understand. Like, it was when it was Elizabeth Warren's turn, it was really bad. He kind of took her to task, in the most polite way possible. But he did take her to task, and she sounded like she was going to cry. But I think that's the way she talks.
That's how she talks. Yeah.
Oh God, it's It's almost off. She's almost as bad as Susan Collins from Maine.
She's gotten
this.
I mean, I used to really like Elizabeth Warren, but in the last year or so, she's been
last year. She's gotten kind of.
I guess I've just started to pay attention.
Last 4 or 5 years, she's gotten.
All right.
Let's
keep going, man. The clock is ticking. All right. Police in Brazil have arrested 4 people for selling meat that was allegedly unfit to be eaten because it had
800 tons.
Because it had come into contact with floodwater. Rio de Janeiro civil police conducted the operation against a company in Tres Rios earlier this month called Operation Carne Frata, but is not related to the findings of the operation with the same name, which we all recall, of course, published back in 2017, as we all know. Officials executed search and seizure warrants at addresses linked to those under investigation in Tres Rios, that's in the south central region of Rio. 4 people have been arrested. According to the investigations, back in May to June of last year, taking advantage of the heavy rain and flooding that devastated the state of Rio Grande do Sul, representatives of a company acquired, as you said, 800 tons of spoiled beef, which had been in contact with the floodwater in Porto Alegre. They claimed that the intention was to manufacture animal feed. However, instead, the cops said that the groups sold the meat to other companies, making a profit of more than 1,000% and putting consumers across Brazil at risk. Inquiries are ongoing, and those investigated might be charged with criminal association, receiving stolen good, adulteration, and corruption of food. Mendel, I don't know if these guys are innocent or not, so I'm going to assume that they're innocent. But if they're guilty, I think this is where the Chinese approach is probably more appropriate.
What's that?
Execution on live television. I mean,
remember what?
Well, remember that's what they used to. That's what they do.
No.
Like with the milk. There was that scandal with the company that deliberately sent out tainted children's milk formula, and the president of the company was held highly accountable to the fullest extent of Chinese law and was executed on national television.
I didn't know that was the outcome. To send a message
to, you know what else they do in China, which is crazy. So after they shoot you, then a courier.
It was firing squad?
It was firing squad. A courier comes to your house and bills your family 70 cents for the price of the bullet because the PRC should not be out a dime for your stupid, worthless life. Now, I'm an anti-death penalty, but I got to say, if you, for profit, decide to sell, 1 pound of contaminated meat on purpose just to make money to human beings. I mean, make animal feed's bad enough, but to human beings, we don't need you around. We're done with you. We're done.
This is how you get fucking mad cow and bird flu and all this shit that's having we're in our food supply right now. And so, in fact, tying this to to RFK and Health and Human Services and MAHA and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So a number of years ago, I think it's been almost 10 years. It's a story I've been trying to work on, but I can't get any fucking traction on it. So there's something called the COOL Act, COOL Act, COOL Act. And are you familiar with it?
No.
So the COOL Act, you might recall maybe 10 or 15 years ago, all of a sudden our meats would show labeling of this, if you got ground beef, it would say made from ground beef from cows in America, Argentina, China, whatever, right? It would list them. And then suddenly that bill was overturned about 10-ish years ago. Okay, that bill was overturned here in the U.S. Now there's no origination of your beef product or your animal products here in the U.S. We don't know where the fuck our tube of beef is coming from, or that you're getting a leg of lamb. One leg might be from the U.S. One leg might be from China. One leg, who knows? Don't know. Don't know, because the COOL Act was overturned and it's lawmakers. Some are trying to bring it back. The farmers, American farmers, obviously really want it to come back. Consumers, if we were more aware of what the fuck the COOL Act was, we would be picketing outside because of stories like this. because Americans do get a lot of beef from Brazil. I don't know if people know this, and that's part of like the greenhouse gas thing and like eating crops, up land in Brazil. But the Cool Act would protect us, Ted, from potentially getting fucking contaminated beef, 800 tons of contaminated beef like this from Brazil. With as popular as these damn Brazilian steakhouses are, at least here in DC, like we should know as consumers, if not all around the world, at least here in the United States, as a US citizen, somebody like RFK does stand behind the Cool Act, and Maha stands behind the Cool Act and bringing it back. And I'm just for that alone, I would sign up. If I could petition to have him be the secretary, I would do it. I would sign that petition because he supports the Cool Act. That is something we need to do and protect our own people. If we can't protect the world, then at least protect our own people from not getting fucking contaminated beef that's going to kill untold thousands of people. Remember, Ted, a couple months ago, McDonald's had that, what was it? Was it E. coli or something in the cheeseburgers or some shit? And 2 or 3 people died.
Yeah, it comes up from time to time. It was Jack in the Box years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, E. coli contamination is always a threat to the public food supply because it really doesn't take much, right? Like that's why there's the signs in restaurants and cafes that all employees must wash hands thoroughly, right?
Ugh.
That's what it's about.
But this is even worse. Like this,
just like a little tiny, you miss something, a little bit.
Like you said, Ted, wash like the surgeons all the way to. And I was watching that plastic surgery show yesterday, like I said, and they do scrub all the way up to like their up here to their bicep.
They do, yeah.
It's crazy, but yeah, I advise everybody. Like I said, I can't get any traction on anyone to speak to me about this story that I'm working on for my own independent stuff on the Cool Act. I advise all of you to look up the Cool Act. Cool. Right. It's a great name, but it's going to impact the American food supply, and it's already going to do it. So
okay then, and police are looking for 3 people who stole a subway train in Queens, New York, and took it for a joyride over the weekend. The theft took place just before 10:30 at night on Saturday near the 71st Street Avenue station in Forest Hills, along the EFMR lines, according to the NYPD. Officials initially responded to reports of vandalism, but it was a little more serious than that. They were met by an MTA employee who reported that several people boarded the unoccupied R train and then took it on a joyride. The MTA did not immediately respond to questions about whether there were operational cameras on the stolen train. The transit agency said that it's working with the cops to identify and find those responsible. Some riders questioned the MTA's security after a number of concerning incidents, including one in September in which the cops alleged that 2 people entered the Briarwood subway station, also in Queens, and stole a train on the E and F line. The teens in that train theft incident were arrested after allegedly crashing the subway train. In a December 2023 incident, several suspects swiped 2 trains in Forest Hills and took them on a joyride before ditching the locomotives. I've heard of kids subway surfing, but as far as hijacking a train and driving it, not too often, but it should never happen, said Chris Patino of Long Island City. That's insanity. That's crazy. That's Mayor Adams, New York.
What the hell? Are these the people that did it? Like there's, this is the movie video.
Oh yeah. Wow. So that's an interesting looking person, to say the least. So they look to be very young. I'd say these are like 17, 18-year-olds.
The build looks very, like minors.
Mm-hmm. I did a deep dive into this because I am really interested in subways. I always have been.
And stealing trains.
I'm really interested in stealing. I'd love to drive a train. So apparently there's this new model of train that is apparently vulnerable to being stolen. And the MTA was warned about this repeatedly, but nobody called, so they ignored it. Now, I don't know why this is the case. I mean, in the old days, there have been some trains that were stolen by basically people would steal the keys from like a subway conductor and then go on a ride. But like these, apparently you don't even have to have keys. Somehow it's like
remote start or like what?
Yeah, maybe you got iPad. If you have the app, download the app. I don't know. So it's a Bluetooth situation. So it's crazy.
I don't have any comment because I don't.
People wonder why some people think that cities are out of control.
I don't know how the subway actually works.
What do you mean?
I just
you don't know how
I
it
don't
works.
know where I've never been to the end of a station where the trains get turned around. I literally don't know how the system works because it's not real native to me.
It's really not that complicated. I mean, basically,
and
it's like a freight
operate.
train. The trains live in a yard where there's like 10 or 20 or 30 tracks side by side. That's where they're maintained. It's where they're washed and stored when they're not being used. Yeah, they're washed.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah, they use high pressure stuff to wash them. And
nothing on the inside apparently.
So when they go to of course, obviously, sometimes they go to a terminus, and then they're just turned around and put back into service. But that's not what this is.
Well, how did these kids steal it then? Like where?
So these trains were stolen out of the yards. The other trains that we mentioned had been stolen out of stations. But basically, they crept into the yards. And as someone who may, in his past, have had something to do with subway graffiti when he was 18, I will say that the yards are not easy to get into. They're guarded by mean dogs, and they're surrounded by razor wire. It looks like Guantánamo, but I guess these guys somehow figured out a way to get in. They don't look like the types who would have braved mean dogs and razor wire. So they must have figured something else out. And, once they got in, the thing is, what's also weird is, these are very conspicuous people. I mean, this lady is dressed in bright pink from head to toe. If that's a lady, that could
very skinny.
Could be a trans lady, but a
person or kid. It's built like a teenager too.
But it's a pink person. A person all in pink. So like a brightly pink person is probably going to stick out. They don't look like the average, subway worker.
Yeah, in hot shorts, hot pants.
No.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
and their pink bag too. At least you gotta like admire their accessorizing.
I don't know. That's it. All right.
Okay.
That's all, folks.
All right. And all right. So Jaws, and we're gonna go to the main subject here.
That's right.
President Trump has ordered the construction of a detention camp with 30,000 beds at Guantánamo Bay concentration camp in Cuba, outlining plans for a site outside U.S. territory where immigrants caught in his expanding deportation campaign could be sent outside the reach of habeas corpus, outside the reach of attorneys. Speaking at the White House, Trump said that the massive site at Gitmo would detain the worst illegal aliens threatening the American people, and that it would be a tough place to get out of. And I think what he means by that is to escape from. Some of them are so bad, we don't even trust other countries to hold them, and we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo, he said. This will double our capacity immediately. ICE has detention capacity for 40,000 immigrants facing deportation nationwide. The biggest facilities have roughly 2,000 beds. So the Gitmo site that Trump wants would dwarf any location in the U.S. Pete Hegseth, Defense Secretary, said the base was a perfect place to hold deportees. Beyond the facilities used to house terrorists many are familiar with, the base is a naval station where it has long been for decades a mission of that naval station to provide for migrants and refugees and resettlements. Hegseth, who as a soldier in the National Guard was stationed at the Guantanamo Torture Center, said that detainees would not be held with terrorism suspects. Rather, the purpose of the camp would be for temporary transit while U.S. officials complete their paperwork and make travel arrangements to send detainees to third countries if their home countries won't take them in, noting that a golf course at the base can be used to expand detention capacity with room for another 6,000 people. So let's get as we get into this, we should discuss the morality, practicality, and political implications of this latest move against illegal migrants.
I'm still trying to process, Ted, all of that, because when the news broke yesterday, I went, this can't be real.
It's real.
Okay,
I don't suffer from TDS. I say that all the time, and I've been calm, and to a fault. I mean, a lot of people have said that I should be freaking out more about Trump. Like, oh, holy shit, why aren't you freaking out? And heretofore, I have not freaked out. Now, I mean, the freak out has begun. To me, this
Are you freaked out over this?
Yes, I'm freaked out about it. I mean, this is Manzanek all over again, right? I mean, this is this isn't like, a few hundred people. This is 30,000 people, 36,000 people potentially, who are going to be sent to a facility, a concentration camp, with the sole purpose is to get them outside of the United States so they can't have any legal representation,
right?
No access to their basic civil rights. And as he said himself, this is about warehousing them in the sake of warehousing them. In other words, it's like if you have like a person from Guatemala who you want to send back to Guatemala, and Guatemala says, yeah, no problem, they're our nationals, send them back. He doesn't want to send them back because he doesn't trust Guatemala to hang on to them. So he's like, literally, like, we are going to put these people in a concentration camp extrajudicially, no civil rights. And by the way, parenthetically, there's the Hamdi decision, which the Supreme Court ruled in the torture part of the camp, said that actually they do have habeas corpus rights, but every administration dating back to Bush, including Obama, Trump, and Biden, have ignored the Hamdi decision and basically not granted all the civil rights to which anyone who's on U.S. territory, which Guantanamo is entitled to. So this is, I'm sorry, there's no other word for it. It's a fascist move. It is. And like people are often too quick to ascribe the F word to Trump, but there it is, right there, that one.
This one, yeah, like I said, my brain is still trying to wrap around this news from last night. There was just, like I said, I've not been in the clearest and soundest of mental capacity the past 48 hours. Still trying to recover from some norovirus. But between the news of the jet crash yesterday and then this coming through, I was going, what the fuck is happening in Washington? And this whole Gitmo thing, like I said, we were talking about this at the top, Ted. I mean, I'm not putting this on Obama, but I kind of am putting it on Obama because I remember voting for him from abroad, right? On one of his campaign promises was that he was going to close Gitmo.
That's true.
One of the greatest abuses of human rights, and just I would say such an ugly piece of American history.
Thank you.
A blight on I mean, we have lots of blights on our history.
But it's kind of the most straightforward blight. Like if you're like a terrorist, anti-American terrorist trying to recruit people overseas to hate the United States, and you only have like 30 seconds elevator pitch, you just mention Gitmo. And they're like, oh yeah. I mean, literally.
Yeah, like that
like
was
we're
one of the
complete
reasons.
Hypocrites when we talk about human rights. Every second that Guantanamo is open is like we have no business talking to any other country about human rights.
All human rights, and I mean everything went out the window with the hundreds of people they started out with, and down to what do they have now, like 30 or something like that. And there's
I think it's almost And also, by the way, if you're a deficit hawk, this shit is expensive. I mean, each Guantanamo inmate currently costs the U.S. government millions of dollars a year to house each. And this, and like even the military deportation flights, they literally cost about $5,000 per person. It would be cheaper to fly them first class on a commercial airline. I mean, it's and you're warehousing these people. Just think about the money.
Right.
And
if
we're
nothing
talking,
else,
and some of them are.
You don't care about the humanity.
Some of these will be children, right? I mean, that's part of it too. Now they're going to like the people. I want to be fair. Some people are going to point out that, for example, during the Mariel boat lift, there were some like Cuban refugees and migrants that have at times been held at Guantanamo, but only for short periods and in very small numbers. Okay, there's no comparison to anything like this. This is it's an optic. And, administration officials have even said that one of the reasons that they're doing this is to strike the fear of God into illegal immigrants in the United States, to think rather than go to Guantanamo where they fucking waterboard you, we should get out of Dodge and fly back to our home countries that way. So in other words, they know that the optics of this is a place where forced rectal feeding has happened, waterboarding, and so on. And look, I take your point completely. I agree. I think that, and I've criticized Obama at length for reneging on his promise to try to close Guantanamo, because he never tried.
No.
Never lifted a finger. But you're talking about, subsequent presidents as well. Biden, has gotten rid of some of them, but he didn't try to close it.
Word. No, never. He never uttered
political
a word
capital.
about closing.
Yeah, never said hey, we should really close this. This has never been a priority for any president. It wasn't a priority for Trump the first time. I mean, he wanted to expand it, and then Obama didn't do dick for 8 years. So they're all like that. And of course, look, the real blame it has to go back to Bush and Cheney, because they created this disaster. Right. And it's bullshit, right? The whole idea was, well, because it's not really in the United States, it's like it's a legal netherworld.
A legal loophole.
And it's not. I mean, I guess it is if you say so, but it's not. Any place on earth that's under U.S. control is subject to U.S. law.
Occupied by the U.S. Yes, right. It's U.S. occupation of technically the island of Cuba. This is the
part of the
what is it? The eastern portion.
Yeah. Western,
southwestern portion of the island. And I mean, bottom line, it's the same thing as when the U.S. occupies any fucking country, right? Like when we're in Afghanistan, so if shit happens there, like on the base, if a soldier rapes a local Afghan woman,
right, which did happen.
Is subject not only to military tribunal, but also, like whatever laws, right? Like it's subject to laws. Like you don't escape laws because it's not U.S. land. Like,
and it is U.S. land. I mean, it's literally
occupied by the U.S.
Well, it's rented, right? I mean, we got Guantanamo from the Spanish-American War at the same time that we got Guam and the Philippines, and which of course is now all independent. Occupied. All occupied. And what's the other thing that we got? Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. All occupied.
So we pay a lease. So when I met Fidel Castro, he had in his he showed me, and I think he probably showed this to all of his visitors, but he had all of the rent checks for the nominal sum that the U.S. pays. I think it's $10,000 a year. He kept them uncashed in his desk from the U.S. government. The U.S. sends the rent check to the Republic of Cuba, and the Cubans don't cash the check because they don't accept the legitimacy of Guantanamo being part of the United States.
But you have to back up and explain to us how you met Fidel Castro.
Oh, on Tinder.
Casual.
No, I mean, I went on a cartoonist's junket many, many, many moons ago. And so I think it was in
cartooning fan?
1999 or 2000. The Cubans are huge political cartooning fans. And not to brag, but at the time I was fairly well known in Cuba, and it was really a cool trip. And so for 2 weeks we were shown all over the place, and we were told that the president would like to meet two of you, and I was one of them. And so I had a great conversation with him. It was awesome. That's a whole story in and of itself. But the point, 3-hour talk. So it was. And he showed me the pictures. Now, he was a guy who was really used to hearing the sound of his own voice, something that you and I could probably relate to. But even so, I did manage to ask him a question that he had apparently had never heard before, and had to think about, and didn't have a prepackaged, answer to. This was a guy who'd been, a top political figure in the world for 60 years. Sure. And he said, so I asked him, like when you took over the Cuban government, the Batista regime took all the money, right? They emptied the treasury. They took all the gold, everything, all the assets of the government. They didn't have anything. They couldn't pay traffic cops to keep the lights on. They couldn't do anything. And I said, weren't you terrified? You couldn't run anything. And he said, yeah. He goes, oh my God. He's like, nobody's ever asked me that before. And he's like, I was sitting in this exact room with Che Guevara. And I kind of got chills. And he's like, Che was sitting in that chair right over there. And he points to it. And he said, we were up all night drinking and smoking and looking out the window at those lampposts. And we were like, we're going to be hanging from those lampposts in like a week or two, because we can't run the country. We have no money. We told everyone we could have a revolution and make things better, but we're fucked. And we didn't know what to do, and we're like kind of resigned to it. And then Che said, I got it. He's like, we're going to nationalize the bastards. We're going to nationalize the foreign sugar, all the foreign businesses, the sugarcane plantations, the tourist casinos, the hotels.
It was Che's idea.
Nationalize it all. And so he's like, we'll announce it. We'll nationalize it. Money will start coming in right away. It's like the West will hate us, but we'll have money. And so, and he said within 6 months, we had more money than we knew what to do with. We were able to start thinking about national health care, a literacy program, free food for the poor. And by 5 years later, they had provided, now bear in mind, this was the early 60s, late 50s. By the end of the 60s, they had so much money that they made international phone calls free from Cuban phones. So, I mean, you remember how expensive an international phone call was in like the 1980s? Okay, so think about that. It's crazy.
That's crazy. Well, what a cool, bizarre story to have for your memoirs, Ted Rall.
I'm working on my memoirs right now.
Well, I want to read about the Ted Rall before I became friends with you a few years ago. So
all right.
I want to know what happens there.
Now I'm boring.
But same. My husband and I were just talking about this last night. Jeez, what happens in your 40s and you're like middle-aged and married?
Used to hang out with Jello Biafra, and now look at me.
Like I used to be, driving away from like Saudi cops with guns coming out of the tops of Land Cruisers, and now look at me.
I hung out with the Taliban. I mean,
like,
what the hell?
Look at me.
Yeah, look at me.
Geez, what happened to me? Now I'm a middle-aged suburban mom just talking about stuff from, video. But look, again, my brain, I don't know what to make of this Trump thing. And I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt because
there is no benefit to be had.
Trump hasn't earned it. Right. He hasn't earned any benefit of my doubt. But, if history proves he's a lot of bluster. I don't know. Like, do you think he hasn't signed this into law? Like he hasn't had a presidential proclamation.
Nothing's going to stop him from doing it. He has promised that he was going to do something like this. I think it's going to be very popular with his base. It's going to
cost $1 billion.
Well, that's true. It's expensive as shit. He doesn't care about deficit spending. We've already established that.
I think this is like
I think it's
around.
It is, it's hilarious to me. Like whenever you go to like a museum about the Holocaust, or I know for a fact, although I have not been there, but I have friends who visited the Manzanek Japanese American concentration camp, and they all say like, and they, the narration is always like, know nothing like this will ever happen again, because humanity has learned its lesson not to disrespect human rights in quite this way. We'll do it in different ways. And it's like
here, we just find more unique ways to do it. And like Gitmos, we keep finding these.
Nothing unique about it. It's just a concentration camp. And anyone who doesn't like me using the word concentration camp, look up the meaning of a concentration camp. A concentration camp is a camp that is used to concentrate large populations of people. That's what it is. And in this particular case, you could also say it is a torture camp, because torture has and continues to take place there. You could almost argue that it's a death camp, because a lot of Guantanamo detainees have died, been murdered, and
Sure.
and driven to suicide there.
Besides that, Ted, so if and when this does happen and we decide to round up 30,000, mostly, I'm not going to say all, but mostly Latino illegal migrants, right? Because I feel like that's who's mostly going to get scooped up. But not all. There's going to be a lot of Asians in there, South Asians, Indians, whatever, a mishmash of things. But the majority, I think we're going to see is a lot of brown Latino men. And I don't know what they're going to be able to do to separate these people, at Camp Gitmo. But there are a lot of rival gangs in that population. And if you're supposedly rounding up the scuzziest scumbags of the illegal migrants, I mean, there's going to be gangbangers from like MS-13 and these other rival gangs that were out in the streets killing each other in their, respective countries to begin with. And then they proliferated up here into the U.S. and they're actually here in Northern Virginia. There's quite a large number of gang members from MS-13. But they're going to get rounded up and like all thrown here at Gitmo. And then what? Just kind of like let them have at it with one another? Or is there going to be security to separate them? Or is this going to be like 300 where you're going to throw like a lion in the pit and have them like fight them to stay alive? Like, you want to fly back to your country now, bitch? Like, fight this lion. Like, is that like, what are we doing? Like, I hope this doesn't come true. I hope this is just some Trump blowing off steam.
I don't know. Have you seen a lot of Trump blowing off steam this week? Have you? I haven't. I mean, no. Everything that's been going on. This is not like he's not flying by the seat of his pants here.
He's been.
This is the first 100 days. All of this stuff has been prepared by he and his team for a while. This is all part of the tsunami of legislation and executive orders that he's been, he's had at the ready, and that he intended to flood the zone with. This was Stephen Miller's strategy. It's a smart strategy. Democrats don't know how to respond. God, I would love there to be just once to have had like a progressive president who came in with this degree of like commitment to getting a lot of shit changed. But that's never happened, not since FDR. So
yeah, it's not going to happen.
This is more like Theodore Roosevelt, also did that. He's serious, and this is going to happen, and no one's going to fucking care because they're not American citizens and they're brown. No one's going to care, and it sucks. And our country sucks, and
human rights, yay!
And our country sucks because we don't care. That's why our country sucks.
Human rights, though.
We're a depraved fucking people. I'm totally ashamed. I'm ashamed of my fellow Americans. Really, truly. I mean, we should be.
Yeah, if this actually becomes real, like I will once again feel ashamed. Like, do you have any idea what it was like to live and work in the Middle East, Ted, with all like in between 2008, 2009, 2010, when I was in the Middle East, living there, right? And in the throes of the Obama administration promising to close Gitmo, and it never happened, that how much shit people would ask me about this, once they found out I was an American. Mm-hmm. And you're just embarrassed. You're utterly embarrassed to go, I don't know. They're like, but no charges. Yeah, no charge. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, these people have not had charges brought against them.
Nope, they sure have not.
What does like the one lonely American out in the middle of a desert, somewhere in one of the Emirates, and they find, they ask you these things about your country and what your foreign policy is, and you're like some random Bedouin. I'm not even kidding, with like a fucking camel, like the little bits of English. Gitmo. And you're like, oh, how do you explain to the rest of the world as an American that we were torturing your brethren, good or bad? Maybe they're great people. Maybe they're terrorists. Don't know. And we'll never know because they've never been charged. And then they just randomly get released 20 years later, but how do you defend that as an American? You can't. And it's one of those big blights on modern American history that Trump is going to have us pay for again in round 2 of Gitmo. Any American going to Latin America, if this happens, you're just be prepared, because that happened to me all across the Middle East for almost 3 years. People ask, they want to know. They're not like Americans. Like, people around the world care about foreign policy. Like, they know about foreign policy. They know what the U.S. is doing, right? Like, I think you can attest to that, Ted. People around the world actually are aware of what's happening.
Everyone's studying us because our influence is so massive, and it's not just military and economic influence, but it's also cultural influence, right? I mean, English is now the lingua franca of most of the world. Our pop culture is everywhere. Yes. I mean, you go to any country in the world, you can probably go to a movie theater and watch a film an American film. I mean,
get a cheeseburger, get a Coke.
And we take that for granted, right? But, if you're Laotian, you can't even really go to Thailand next door and see a movie in Laotian. So it's we're unique that way. You can see an American film in Kabul under the Taliban. I mean,
American Supreme, right? Like wherever.
So they are all watching us, because Big Daddy America be all over the place, kicking ass. So they've got to be, concerned about us. And
so I'll just warn all the Americans, you and I love going to Latin America. Like, I love Latin countries, and mostly because they have good mangoes. I'm a big fan of mangoes, Ted. I think I've said this a few times on the show. And stubbornly, those things like to grow like near the equator-ish. Damn it. So I always have to go to like those Latin countries to get good fruit. But now I'm going to have to be faced with questions from those people. Like, what about Gitmo? ¿Cuál es Gitmo? Like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
No, and you're right. Look, I can't compare. I've never, worked. I've never lived and worked overseas the way you have. I definitely have spent a lot of time, though, in the Middle East and in those countries. And you're 100% right. People are like, what are you guys up to? Why do the United States, what are you doing? And, you have to justify it. And fortunately, thank God, even in really anti-American countries like Pakistan, you can explain it, right? They'll listen to you. You can say, like, listen, like here in Pakistan, the people are here, the government's here, they do what they want up there, and like the people, we don't really have any say. Like, I didn't vote for any of this, and like most Americans did not vote for any of this, right? It's not like Guantánamo concentration camp was ever put up to a plebiscite in the U.S. and that we voted for it. It's like, this is stuff that the powers that be do, and they get it. They're like, oh yeah, okay, I understand that, in a way that we don't. Like when after 9/11, when Sikh people, just because they happen to be wearing a turban, were shot to death.
Is very, oh.
And like in the Sikhs are not the same.
Right. Like,
anyway, not that going after Muslims or Sunni Muslims would be okay either, but.
Right. But just there's a distinction.
Producer Robbie has a question. Robbie, pop on if you're listening. All right. What's your question? Then we'll do your question last, and then we'll go.
Sounds good.
We gotta go.
Now, for the record, I oppose everything what Trump is talking about here. I am not a shrinking violet when it comes to the border and immigration. Y'all know that. Deport every last damn one of them. That's where I stand.
But deport them home.
Yes, but you don't send them to prison. So here's my question: if these countries are worried about their citizens being sent to Guantanamo, do you think that that would incentivize them to actually start accepting their migrants back on deportation flights? Like, could this be Trump's way of saying, you will, if you care about your citizens, you're going to let them back in?
Well, I mean, it's just like President Petro had to, Trump had to play this pissing contest tariff thing, even if it was fake, for like 45 minutes before President Petro said, all right, uncle, and all right, bring them.
So I just wonder if this is, I wonder if this is a tactic, if you care that much about your citizens that you're going to raise hell, then maybe you should take your citizens back who shouldn't be here in the first place. I wonder if this is Trump's angle.
Well, it's possible, but the problem is that if it worked with some countries, it would not work with every country, right? I mean, some countries really, truly don't care about their citizens,
Right.
or they might not care about these citizens because they're starting out with people who are currently in jails and prisons, either serving time or awaiting trial in many cases. So these are not like, exactly like luminaries of El Salvador or whatever, right? So El Salvador might be like, I had a friend. He was involved in I went to school with him. He was involved in a terrible international incident, and he fell into he was a criminal, and he was captured by Castro's government in Cuba. And, at the time, my friend thought, oh, I'm in Cuba, I'm outside. There's no extradition treaty. Castro is like, we have plenty of criminals and thugs here. We got our own. U.S. can have them back. And I think that's what a lot of times, other governments like Venezuela or whatever, they're going to be like, do we need these people? Really? I mean, a lot of countries don't care that much about their nationals, especially when they fuck up and overseas.
That's true.
I mean, hell, the U.S. is one of them. We don't care that much. I mean, if you commit a crime, like you're on vacation, you get caught selling drugs or buying drugs in Thailand, they're throwing you away. And
maybe
the embassy sometimes will send someone to come and visit you. Maybe.
Unless they're not going to try to get you out there, unless you can be a political pawn like we use with like the Americans imprisoned in Russia and vice versa.
Yeah.
Unless there's like any kind of political capital there, you're just
they don't care about you. Like we didn't care that much about like the hitchhiker who walked on the wrong side of the Iranian border and got picked up by the Iranians.
Fucked up.
But a lot of these countries, though, I mean, they do care about their foreign aid. They care about their remittances. I think that a better way for Trump to do this instead of sending people to a concentration camp.
They do care about remittances. They do care about that stuff.
100%. So what Trump should do? I know he's listening to the show right now. I know he's watching.
Okay.
I mean,
hello,
what
Mr.
I would
President.
do
somebody's watching.
Is set up a camp, kind of like what Joe Arpaio had in Arizona. Put everyone in pink little pajamas. That way they're here.
Have them clean the streets on a chain gang.
People died in those camps. You know that from heat stroke and stuff.
Well, I mean, a place to be games.
He was a maniac.
But 100%.
I was a news anchor in Arizona, so.
But all I'm saying is, like, until you start taking your people back, you're not going to get any more dollars from your people who are here. That to me is a better way of doing this. So send people to a giant concentration camp with no rights.
Well, I mean, he could.
Well, we'll see.
He wanted to hit them where it hurt, like in the pockets, like they did with Russia. All you have to do is be like, "Hey, I don't know, Peru. You're not going to take your people back. We're going to push pause on your SWIFT entry, and we're going to push, your SWIFT membership. We're gonna put that on pause until
there are ways to enforce your will without putting people in a concentration camp.
Agree.
That's all I'm saying.
100%.
Let's go from a right winger.
And to have that coming from producer Robbie, that says a lot.
That's true. Robbie is very, very anti illegal immigration. So
yes.
Illegal. So or I think maybe legal immigration. I don't think he's
I think he's all against
none of it. Close the borders. None of it. Close the damn borders. Goodbye.
Bye. All right then. All right. With that, I can think of no better way to end. Always end up, as Mark Ullman from Soft Cell says.
That's right. Okay, that's going to do it for us. Manila Chan here, Ted Rall. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Ted Manila Information Show, TMI Show for short. Make sure you guys hit that like and follow button, the thumbs up, all of that stuff, so it can help the algorithms and help promote us.
We're almost at the magic 500, right? So,
Yay!
So do it. Like where are we at? We're at 481. Oh my God, so close, so close. We can smell it. Like a pair of dirty underwear sitting in the corner of your closet.
I had a weirdo ex-boyfriend that kind of broke into my apartment. Not really broke in because my roommate was home, but she didn't pay attention. She's like
weaseled his way in?
Yeah, because I wasn't home. My roommate was there, and she knew that we broke up. And he said that he left some stuff in my room. She let him in.
I forgot my...
Yeah, whatever. My toothbrush, whatever. And she let him in, and he made off with a video reel of mine. And back then it was VHS, right?
Oh, so, like a sizzle reel?
Yeah. He made off with a sizzle reel. He made off with some dirty underwear in my hamper was rifled through. And he took my favorite cashmere sweater.
Okay, that I'm a huge cashmere sweater aficionado, and that last one is like, I could let the sizzle reel go. The dirty underwear is gross, but
it's gross and weird.
But like
but the cashmere sweater, and back then it was way more expensive, and I could barely afford, like, that was like my one nice thing I had in my early 20s.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking.
My fucking cashmere sweater.
Did you call him, or were you just like, I don't want to talk to him, fuck him?
I don't want to talk. I was like, this is a fucking psycho. Like, it'd be one thing if he took my cashmere sweater and the sizzle reel, but I knew he was a psycho because my underwear was missing.
Right. And you don't want to think about, like, where that underwear is, subsequent to its theft. I had a male roommate in freshman year who lost his mind. We moved in, we were good friends. It lasted about a month. A dude, we were
in the dorm.
College roommates in the dorm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're in a double. Anyway. And when I say he lost his mind, he ended up being sent to an insane asylum. Okay. So he lost his mind. And so he moved out. And before he moved out, and he like picked a fight with me, he stole my underwear, all of my underwear, my clean underwear, I should say, and my socks. And I was like, when a man doesn't have underwear or socks, that's not a good day. And I was a poor college student, and he also stole my Reagan dartboard, and I was so sad about that.
What the hell?
Because I used to, throw darts at Ronnie every day.
This is so weird.
And I was just like, and then he moved out, and he told people in the dorm, I don't know what, but he said all sorts of bad things about me to everybody, and people were like giving me like stink eye, like. And I was like, what did he say? And they're like, fuck off. And then like a week later, he had moved in with some friends a floor below. And a week later, this is what led to the, institutionalization. While his classmates, his new roommates were away at class, he threw all of their possessions out the window. Now, bear in mind, we were on the 5th floor. So everything that they owned, their stereo, their TV, everything went out onto 114th Street from, maybe 60 feet up. So that was bad. And everything, like literally they came back and everything was gone. The sheets on their bed, everything. So like they were angry. And fortunately they were rich kids, so they could buy everything, but still.
And how did they get him committed though?
Well, so I don't really know how it came to pass. But,
but he was committed.
But he was committed, and people started talking to me again, like I was vindicated. And
and
they're like, oh, I see.
Bag.
Yeah,
that
whatever.
guy was Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
oh, wait, we can't say that. We did the whole, like...
Bonkers?
Whole sensitivity. Nuts? No, we can't say those.
Oh, right.
We did the whole sensitivity training thing, Ted.
My trainings never stick with me.
We don't have to do that anymore, because Trump's president now.
That's true. And so, anyway, it was, like, very, like... yeah, and then there's a coda to this story, because for people who are familiar with my life story, I went to Columbia for 3 years. They threw me out, and I worked for 4.5 years, and I went back. And when I went back 4.5 years later, I'm standing in line at registration, because back then you had to register for classes IRL, and you had to stand in a line and with all these weird signs and stuff. So I'm standing in, and it was a drag. It really, I can't believe you get to do it online now. But anyway,
with the book, remember you have the book.
Oh, and you had to get certain professors had to sign off.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my God.
Please, can I please take your American Enlightenment 1830 class?
But I really need this one, please.
Yeah, please. I can't graduate on time. I was like, okay, I guess. Anyway, I'm standing in line and I hear a familiar voice, and it's him, and he's like
the nut,
and he'd been released, and he had been chemically lobotomized, and so he was really, it was just like Francis Farmer, like the movie with Jessica Lange. Literally, he was like, it is quite pleasant to see you, Ted. And I was like, hey, you're back? He's like, yes, I am here to complete my education. Ted. And I was like, oh, good for you. And then he's like,
oh my
would
God.
you like to be my friend again? And I said, no, I would not.
Oh no,
and he
Ted.
said, okay. Well, he attacked me physically while I was sleeping. He like came in middle of the night. I was sleeping,
Yep,
and he said, it smells like socks, which it did not. And then attacked me with a broom handle, like hitting me over the head with the broom over and over until me and other students overcame him and tied him to a bed with belts. Okay, that's what it was like. So I was like, no, I don't want to be your friend. Okay, bye.
What a tragic fucking story.
Oh, he's probably like in the Trump administration now. He's probably like deputy undersecretary of underwear or something. I mean, he certainly started his life with a bounty of Fruit of the Loom. I mean, you know, and many
stole everybody's socks. Underwear on the fifth floor.
Socks. Yeah. He's like, don't
everybody's.
Yeah, you want to lock your dresser whenever he's around. He's the underwear pirate of the Upper West Side.
See, I only lost a few panties to one weirdo. There was a whole.
Now the story's changing.
Students.
A few.
Well, a couple. He went through my. I don't know how many were in there. I hadn't done my laundry, but he rifled through a few.
In Japan, they have these vending machines on the streets of Tokyo that sell dirty panties, and because they're kinky people. Well, the guys.
Yes.
Well, the girls too, but the guys mainly.
Maybe.
And I always had this thought. This image when I first saw this. That like I was like. So I imagined a factory floor where all the women are, and it's like, Kyoko, line 4, you're slow on the panty production. Like, rub faster, rub harder.
Oh my God.
Or I was like wondering, is it fake? Do they just use like some concoction of like
a spray
peanut butter and like, who knows what, and they, put it in there and like maybe it's a spray. It's all a lie. Like, or I imagine like they're really like disgusting, like 90-year-old, like
just some old lady that's like on social security.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to be thinking she's like a hot, like 19-year-old schoolgirl, with the
right.
But maybe not, right? Or like maybe it's a dude.
70-year-old.
Maybe they get some gross homeless guys to do it.
Butt stank. What's the brand of these like vending machines called, like Sniff or something? Or
I don't know, but they're on the street, right? They're not like in a store or like in a porn place. They're
in like
on
a
the
kink
street.
shop.
They're like out. Yeah, it's like literally like it's out there, like on the sidewalk. Yeah,
I would really like to go to Japan.
This is what makes you want to go to Japan?
No, just there's so many weird things I've heard about Japan.
Oh, they're so weird.
I just need to see it for myself. I just need to go. Their obsession with robots and kink and like weird sleep pods, and
it's good for shopping.
How no one's boning,
good for eating. It's good for eating. There's some good concerts to be seen, some good museums. There's stuff to do. The people are it's probably like they're probably about as friendly as Guantánamo guards. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've heard you say that before. So I don't know. I would like to see it, and but all right. With that, Ted and I are out of here. We'll be back tomorrow. I made it through the whole show.
That's
without
amazing.
running to the bathroom.
Good for you. Woohoo!
I wish I could sleep this long without having to go to the bathroom.
Oh, that'd be good.
I'm down a few pounds, but
All
right. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 10. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Au revoir.